Today is Monday, April 11th, and this is the ADM Investor Services Weekly Market Kickoff. Please note that the views and opinions expressed here today are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. Today's guests are Steve Freed, ADMIS Vice President of Grain Research, and Alan Bush, ADM Investor Services Senior Financial Economist. Steve, start with the grain markets this morning. Corn and wheat futures continue to rally off recent lows. Why? And do you feel this will continue?
I think, first of all, I think the war in Ukraine is adding to supply chain disruptions, whether it's Ukraine, corn exports, or wheat out of the Black Sea. USDA did come out with lower than expected corn acres for 2022 in the U.S., which is pushing these corn new contracts highs on a daily basis. And I think we're also worried about wheat weather conditions for the next 2 weeks. There will be no rain, temperatures in the southern plains. And yes, I do think that the corn market and the wheat market will continue to trade higher, trying to figure out how much demand needs to be rationed in 2022.
Steve, the USDA lowered the Brazilian 2022 soybean crop and increased U.S. soybean exports. Will they need to make a higher adjustment to U.S. soybean exports? And do you think this is a fairly bullish scenario?
I do think long term it's bullish. I think that Brazil has no FOB soybean offers from June forward. And so I think China will need to come in and other buyers will need to buy U.S. soybeans for late summer, fall, and even early 2023 buying from the U.S., which would bring the carryout down. Now today, beans are sharply lower along with soybean oil and soybean meal, following the lower crude oil market on concerns that China economy is slowing because of their strict COVID restrictions, and that is weighing on markets that tend to rally when China's importing commodities.
Finally, Steve, you did touch on the Southern Plains weather, but what is the latest 2-week weather forecast for the Midwest, Southern Plains, and the Delta regions? And how is the market looking at the weather currently?
Well, the first crop ratings last week that the USDA did for winter wheat was the second lowest in history. And so we really haven't had any rain since then, and the 2-week forecast is warm and dry. We're looking at USDA using about a 50 bushel wheat yield in their outlook conference. These crop ratings would suggest a yield as low as 40. We have some people that are looking at a crop of only 1.8 billion versus the USDA's 1.9 billion, which would put the U.S. carryout at 423 versus the USDA numbers that are around 731. And that would suggest not only the wheat prices in Kansas City trading over $11.50 like they are now, but will probably trade over $12.
Alan, turning to the financial markets, what's the near-term outlook for the stock index futures?
Well, the indices are still, at least right now, being dominated by the fundamentals, as we are seeing a downdraft today in futures. Of course, we have the ongoing geopolitical issues, the hawkish Fed, also some talk that corporate earnings may be a little on the weaker side. Of course, this is the first week of corporate earnings season. However, the technicals remain supportive as futures are now still above major downtrend lines. And I would have to say that the futures have held up relatively well with the news that we have had as of late. So the fundamentals are bearish, but the technicals are supportive. So I think we are likely to remain in a trading range of at the high end of 45.90 in the S&P and 43.20, and that is a previous upside breakout point. So I'm seeing more of a sideways trade with, once again, the fundamentals bearish and the technicals supportive.
Alan, the crude oil continues to be watched closely. What are the major support and resistant levels for the crude oil futures?
Well, first of all, I think that as the global economy tends to weaken, and we're seeing a lot of numbers indicating just that the near-term trend is lower, and the March 15th low at 92.20, I think will probably be taken out. with the next support coming in at around 90 even. Some resistance at 105.60, but the near-term move, once again, I believe is to the downside. And so look for that breakout in the crude oil over the near term to the downside, of course.
Last question, Alan. The gold market has been outperforming the silver market. Why? And do you feel that spread will continue to widen?
Okay, gold has gained on silver, and I think that is a trend that will probably continue. And the reason is, once again, the weakening global economy will probably impact the silver market more than the gold, with the silver having more of a industrial component to it than the gold market. So I would expect the gold to continue to gain on the silver market, probably for several months at least.
Thank you both. Remember, the views and opinions expressed today on this video are solely those of our guests and should not be construed as the views or opinions of ADM Investor Services or ADM. If you'd like more information about our brokerage services, would like to speak to one of our experts about managing your risks, or would like to open a trading account, please visit www.admis.com.